One of the lessons I've learned since earning a name for myself on LinkedIn and picking up that LinkedIn Top Voice Award is never have all your eggs in one basket, and don't rely on a game where you're playing by somebody else's rules and on their playground, because they control that pay-to-play model and they can turn that tap off at any moment and start charging you to make your voice heard amongst that following that you've created. Now, when LinkedIn Pulse and the algorithms changed, I could have been finished, but creating my own platform that I run was possibly the best decision I ever made. And of course, you build up your own email list. And over the years, I've seen this grow more and more because publishers did give away their inventory over to Facebook. And many of them paid a very heavy price for doing that because ultimately, Facebook gets revenue from user engagement. And the publisher, they don't own or control that distribution method. And in response to realising that they've been taken advantage of over the years by these walled gardens, we're now beginning to witness the renaissance of email for publishers. And publishers have realised that they have a logged-in channel that they own. That's right, email. And now email and newsletters are all acting as a bulwark against Facebook and their ilk. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to New York so we can speak with Corral Cooper, SVP Global Marketing at Live Intent, who's going to talk about how publishers are fighting against those walled gardens with email. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Corral. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So, hi Neil, and thanks for having me on the podcast. My name is Corral Cooper. I am currently the Senior Vice President of Global Marketing at a MarTech company called Live Intent. I've been with the company now for a little over 4.5 years in various roles from account management, product marketing, and now heading up all of marketing. Prior to Live Intent, I pretty much grew up, I would say, on the publisher side of our industry. That's where I had, most of my professional development growth, if you will, and more specifically at a local news publisher called Advanced Digital, where I was there for almost 8 years running ad operations and platform strategies. And I guess as a side note, a partner of mine in the space, his name is Eric Rickaden. He works for a company called Inner Markets, a good friend of mine in the space. He and I started a podcast about a year ago called the Minority Report Podcast. And essentially what that podcast is it's a way for us to sort of create a platform to allow people of color, women, people of diverse backgrounds within the marketing and advertising space to tell their story, right? So the podcast is less about sort of the day-to-day of advertising and marketing, but more about getting to know people on a personal level. So, talking about their background, their upbringing, their culture, their views on diversity and inclusion in the space, so on and so forth. And we've been doing that for about a year, which has been a really cool experience for me.
Fellow podcaster, man, I'm going to have to up my game and be on my best behaviour now. Now, despite being a former IT guy, I'm one of the rare techies that puts people before technology. And that is one of the reasons that put you guys on my radar, is because you describe yourselves as a people-based marketing tech company. So can you tell the listeners a little bit more about Live Intent and how you're changing the way brands and publishers actually think about email now?
Yeah, sure. So the company Live Intent, we've been around for a little over 10 years. Actually, last month was our 10-year anniversary. And essentially, we started out as helping publishers solve the ability to deliver ads within email newsletters, because there really wasn't an efficient way to dynamically deliver ad impression campaigns within email newsletters. And so over the course of, I would say, 10 years here, we've built up this sort of massive ecosystem within email newsletters, where now we work with over 2,500 publishers and brands to help them acquire, retain, and monetize their audience within email newsletters. And it's everyone from companies like New York Times and Meredith and Condé Nast, to other brands like a Walmart, a Wayfair, Overstock. All of those types of companies work with us to again help acquire, retain, and monetize their audience within email newsletters. With that said, I think one of the unique, well, not that I think, I know one of the unique things about us is that everything that we do in terms of delivering advertising and marketing messages and helping our customers really understand more about their audience is connected to the email address, right? Or as we refer to the email hash, which is a privacy compliant way of looking at email addresses, right? So when you think about targeting today on the web, everything revolves around the cookie, right? Whether a first party or third party cookie, everything revolves around the cookie. But for us, it's the email address. And when you think about that, right, when you think about a user and their email address and the value that provides in terms of helping to identify people, right? It's your email address is pretty much your gateway or your passport to the internet. There isn't much you can do on the internet without it, right? You use it to log into social, you use it to buy something, you use it to sign up for something, right? And it's yours, it's personal. You don't share it with anyone else, and your email address is what you really have had or maintain, I guess you should say, for everything that you do on the internet. And so when you think about what's tied to that and how personal it is, and then when you think about sort of the email environment, you have to be 100% logged in because the email address is tied to you as an individual. It's fraud-free, and people that sign up for email newsletters are usually a publisher or brand's most engaged audience, right? And so we really feel like we sit at that sort of intersection between advertising and marketing technology, and in a really cool space where, the email address we think is the sort of future of digital advertising.
Over the years, of course, publishers have given much of their inventory over to companies such as Facebook, and as a result have paid a pretty heavy price for that because, of course, Facebook gets its revenue from user engagement and publishers don't actually own or control the distribution in those pay-to-play kind of models. So in response to realising that they've been taken advantage of by these walled gardens, it does seem that we're witnessing the renaissance of email for publishers. But can you set the scene and tell me more about the scale of the problem and what you're seeing out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is a massive one from the standpoint of, if for publishers and for brands to survive moving forward, they have to understand more and more about their audience, right? And you're right. Unfortunately, publishers have given away that information to Facebook, to Google, to other walled gardens for a number of years. And what's interesting that we are seeing here at Live Intent is more and more publishers are now coming back to us and sort of waking up to the fact that, they need to figure out a first-party audience strategy in a, let's just call it a cookieless world, right? Because I think, with everything from ITP 2.0 to all the privacy rules and regulations to some of what Google just recently announced, that the cookie is going to slowly but surely sort of diminish over time. And if you are a major publisher, right, you have to think about how are you going to continue to grow audience, right? Not necessarily traffic. Traffic is important, but when I look at traffic, you can come and go. That's traffic. But an audience is core to your business. Your audience are your most engaged users. Your audience is who you know the most about so that you can make the best decisions for how you want to have conversations with them. And in order to grow audience, right, email still sits at the core of it for all the things that I just mentioned in the last response to you. And so more and more publishers are now trying to figure out how can they leverage the power of email newsletters and the email address to grow their audience.